Chapter 109. Why should I watch you? Didn't I clearly say that I would only help you this one time? Despite his words, Enon was not as cruel or indifferent as he pretended to be. Yudhir, who had received his help on several occasions, knew this fact better than anyone. The ones I'm trying to save are not only Kishirla or you are also included, and so are the many others who have been lost due to ignorance in the past. Swallowing the words he couldn't say to Enon, Yudhir reached out his hand. Are you not giving it to me? You're not really planning a rebellion, are you? Despite his numerous assurances to the contrary, Enon repeated the same question before handing over the paper, clearly still uneasy. No. Even after hearing the firm answer, Enon hesitated a bit before slowly handing the paper to Yudhir. As Yudhir unfolded and began to read the document, Enon couldn't hide his suspicious gaze and opened his mouth. By the way, you must read and leave it here. It's absolutely forbidden to take it outside. Understood? Since highly classified information was often read and disposed of quickly on the spot, Yudhir wasn't surprised and simply nodded. Enon's eyes grew perplexed as he watched Yudhir, a mere soldier from commoner background, reading the document filled with difficult terms and seeming comfortable handling confidential information. It was far too early for such a look. What exactly was this familiar sight? Regardless of Enon's thoughts, Yudhir remained focused on the documents in his hand. The paper contained detailed information about the imperial family, a topic he had never been curious about in his previous life. Most of it is information I already roughly knew. There were a total of 10 dukes who had become dukes with the imperial family's surname Lahore, including the current Duke Paleta Kishir Lahore. Considering the empire's 1,000-year history, it seemed a small number. However, on the flip side, it was astonishing that these 10 had largely been forgotten, with their names barely recorded in history. There was hardly any official information about them, only the years of their birth and death, and names of the territories they had ruled as dukes. Rumors had it that the dukes who bore the surname Lahore all had significant defects that made it difficult for them to live normally as princes. They received the nominal title of duke, thereby permanently losing their rights to the throne, but in return their lives and safety were guaranteed until death. Yudhir was about to skip over the sections containing information he already knew when a particular part caught his eye. It was the section transcribing the birth and death years engraved on the tombstones of the previous dukes who had held the surname Lahore before Kishir. Come to think of it, they all died quite early. According to the records, all 9 of them died before they turned 30. It was too soon. Even peasants, struggling to live day by day, mostly lived past 50. This made it even more surprising. I wonder if the major defects included physical aspects as well as mental. They share quite a few common traits. They all died young, never married, had no children, and severely restricted their external activities. Considering they even died within their own territories, it's almost like they were imprisoned. Enon opened his mouth with a grim face, as if he realized where Yudhir's gaze had stopped. Apart from Kishir Lahore, whom you said you'd protect, there isn't anyone else who showed their faces in the capital's high society. very few remaining portraits, and there were 6 who were isolated in remote areas and raised from the time they were born. But do you know what's more interesting? What is it? Out of 10, 6 were born in the last 300 years. Hearing that, he looked down at the paper once again, and indeed, it was as Enon said. Yudhir realized that including Kashir, a total of 6 people were born within the past 300 years, and his eyes widened. It's really strange, considering that the Duke with the surname of Lahore first appeared 200 years after the empire was established. Even I found out while researching this time. So, is it a problem related to the imperial bloodline? As Yudhir opened his mouth, thinking about a certain hypothesis that crossed his mind, Enon nodded. It's plausible to think so. The imperial family of the Ur Empire has long been revered, being referred to as having inherited the blood of the sun god. Although the geopolitical situation of the continent has changed a lot now, with countries that were once vassal states gaining independence or increasing their power, and the Ur Empire no longer occupying the absolute position it once did, people living on the continent still held a degree of reverence for the imperial family. Having superior abilities and overwhelming appearance befitting the inherited blood backed up such reverence. But what if there was a problem with the so-called perfect bloodline? Just imagining it felt like blasphemy, denying the god. However, Yudhir had long realized that the imperial family was ultimately just human, like him. They are humans after all. And many people who face insurmountable problems tend to avoid them and just hide them well enough to not attract attention, like the mere title of Duke given to the 10 royals, including Kishir. The remaining records are extremely scarce, so it's not clear exactly what the problem was with the dukes bearing the surname of Lahore, but it's likely not physical. There hasn't been a case where someone was deprived of their succession rights because they had a minor physical disability, right? Like Tilar, who had difficulty with his legs since birth, or Crown Prince Zakem, who returned half paralyzed after a war. Indeed. Yudhir agreed with Enon's assumption, nodding. Among the past emperors, there were those who had physical disabilities from birth or those who had acquired physical problems. However, he had never heard anyone questioning their abilities as royals. So, is it mental? But Kishir seems perfectly fine. There must have been some common defect between the 9 previous dukes and Kishir to have maintained the title of Duke of Lahore, yet he had no clue what it could be. Yudhir flipped through the bundle of papers, lost in thought. The next page contained rumors and remaining records related to the 9 deceased dukes. Most of it was nonsense, near groundless rumors, but Yudhir focused on a certain common point that appeared among them. Before death, they had rapidly weakened over several months, and their appearance was like a corpse drained of all blood by a monster. Those who had witnessed the dukes before their death were all reportedly shocked at their appearances, as they had become as shriveled and dark as a corpse, their former visage nowhere to be seen. The most detailed story among similar ones was the information about the 9th Duke, La Flamme Lahore, who died 33 years ago. He is said to be getting weaker day by day. Now he can't even walk by himself and is suffering. But no more painkillers seem to have any effect. Following his wishes, I have decided to dismiss everyone working in the castle, except those bought from the palace. I wish only for his comfort until the day he departs. But sadly, given the past cases, it is highly likely that this will not be the case. Whose account is this? That? A letter sent by the Duke's adjutant to his brother. Although I was very curious as to how a letter sent by someone as close to Duke as his adjutant to his kin ended up as a reference, it didn't seem like Enon was going to give me any answers. If this is information left by the Duke's adjutant, then the previous cases mentioned are likely refer to former dukes who were in the same condition. So, does this mean that while the information was strictly classified externally, within the imperial family, everyone knew these facts? Either recall the image of Kishir from his past life just before his death. He hadn't drastically withered like a corpse or become too weak to walk on his own in the months leading up to his death, as described in these accounts. However, the fact is Kishir looked more and more tired and thin as time went on, unlike how he is now. Kishir had been in such a state even before stepping down from his position as commander of the cavalry. While this might not necessarily point to commonalities with the dukes mentioned in this information, Yudir was somehow continuously bothered by it. The part about Kishir or you are looking for is in the last chapter. As Yudir was carelessly flipping through the pages filled with various rumors, Enon pointed out where the section he was looking for was. Hearing this, he brought the last chapter forward and saw information written rather succinctly compared to other chapters. Is this it? I left out common knowledge since he's still alive. Only things not widely known are left, and that's about it. Enon was correct, but there was one problem. Since Either had been fairly close to Kishir in his past life, he already knew most of the information provided. The rumor that he became the new owner of the divine sword, that's true, and the fact that he can use divine power, that's also true. The rumor that he learned magic from the senior court mages in his childhood, I'm not sure about that. He might have been misunderstood because he carries around a lot of magic tools. In his past life, Yudhir had seen Kishir freely changing his appearance and wandering outside his quarters using a special magic tool. These days, he doesn't use it much, but if someone who didn't know it was due to a magic tool saw this, it could have been misunderstood. It is said that the private soldiers he raises in the Peleta territory are actually a powerful force and at the Emperor's command. They can rush to the capital and execute any rebels. Is this just a baseless rumor?